Hello, critical thinkers. Hope all is well. Thank you for coming tonight. As most of you know, or as some of you know, I have been covering Keon Walker. And Keon Walker is currently in Attica Correctional Facility. So, for those of you who haven't been following the story, what I'm going to do now is bring up an expose that Sarah Wallace did, and she mentioned Keon's story. So I have to give a big shout out to Sarah Wallace and NBC4 New York. They've actually been covering abuses in the New York State Department of Correctional Services, and they've been covering multiple incarcerated individuals and covering their stories, including Robert Brooks, Messiah Nantry, Christopher Giles, and also Keon Walker. So, what I want to do briefly is bring up a portion of the Sarah Wallace piece. So for those of you who don't know about Keon's story, we'll hear about it for the first time. Okay, here we go.
That's savage.
We've confirmed several recent assault claims of other inmates, including 24-year-old Keon Walker at Attica, are being actively probed by state DOC investigators. Walker told us he was assaulted by officers on March 9th, but they say he attacked them.
Did you assault them at all?
Not at all. I was thrown to the floor by maybe 10 or 17 COs. I was kicked, punched. I felt my genital areas being twisted by the staff.
Walker, in prison on a parole violation, is scheduled to be released in July. He says he was put in punitive isolation, denied food and running water for days.
They turn the water so you can't use the bathroom, you can't drink. They on my toilet a couple of times. I had to take the cups that they gave me and scoop out the toilet because I was so thirsty. I got one sheet, no pillow. I got no toothpaste and no toothbrush. And it would get treated way better than that.
A corrections spokesman denies that Walker was deprived, adding there are system-wide cameras at Attica. It is unclear whether they caught the Walker incident or the two recent ones at Midstate. By the way, a special prosecutor says he will present the Messiah Nantry case to a grand jury in April.
Okay, there you have it. So since Sarah Wallace has covered Keon Walker, I have done a couple of videos on Keon Walker. I've been in contact with his mom, Keisha, and she has shared basically audio calls that I've made videos on and played. So his situation has not gotten better, and so I thought it was important to bring on Keon's mom. So I am going to bring up Keon's mom up to the stage now. Here we go. Keisha, how are you?
How are you?
Hey, I can't complain. I am alive. And how's everything with you?
I'm doing good. I mean, despite of everything was going on.
Well, yeah. So why don't you, if you can, just let everyone know who you are and why you're here tonight.
Well, I'm Keisha Wong. I'm Keon Walker's mother. I'm here to let my son's story be heard of how he's being mistreated and how he was brutally abused and tortured in Attica.
Wow. Wow. And how long has Keon been in Attica?
Since January, end of January.
The end of January. Okay. So before we get into how he ended up in Attica and the situation with those correctional officers who beat him, maybe we should really talk about just Keon as a young man. Can you tell us about him as a kid, what he liked, how was he, his personality?
He has a good personality, just like a normal kid. He had a couple little bumps in the road during school. I mean, like I said, he was diagnosed with ADHD. So sometimes he's a little difficult to deal with at times, but overall he was just a kid, a normal kid.
Okay. And currently you mentioned Keon is in Attica Correctional. And then can you tell us maybe about like what was his first touch points with the correctional system?
He ended up in DOCCS because he was driving in a stolen car, someone given him, and the car was part of a robbery. So, because he got caught driving the car, he got caught, you know, for robbery. That landed him in DOCCS for 3 years, 6 months on a robbery second.
Gotcha. And then currently he's in Attica because of a parole violation, right?
Yes.
Okay. 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 So maybe we should talk about the actual incident that I've actually played on this channel. The audio was from basically, there's audio of him talking about what occurred with him on March 9th. And can you maybe share with us what Keon has talked about and what happened on that day?
He shared with me he was going to rec and he was walking down the gallery. He was kind of like, fooling around with his hat, tossing it side to side. And the guards were at the end of the gallery, at the end of the stairs, and they asked him for his ID. He gave them the ID. They looked at it and he told him to get up against the wall. They went to search him, and Officer Rembeck basically, touched him in his genital area. And he told him that he can't do that. And then the other CO did the same thing. And they say he was resisting arrest, and then that's when they attacked him.
Wow. Okay, so he was attacked, and how many correctional officers were involved?
About 10, I want to say.
About 10, you want to say. And do you know if there's any body cam evidence involved in this?
There was no, I mean, the sergeant had a body cam on, but basically they stand in front of the body cam so you can't see what's going on. And they had him move down the hallway so you can basically not see what's going on. You can only hear what's going on. So you can hear on the tape of him yelling and screaming, and on the body cam, all you see is the back of someone's neck and the back of their shirt, because they stand in front of the camera, so they can't be recorded on what's going on when they're, beating up someone.
Wow. And then how did you learn about this body cam, about this video in your son's case?
It was brought to the hearing. He caught a ticket, a tier 3 ticket. He went to the hearing. His lawyer from PLS, she asked for the footage from the camera and the body cam, and she told me that you can't see Keon kicking anybody, biting anybody, resisting arrest. It just shows tussling around, like you can hear rumbling around in the background. You hear Keon screaming on the video, and the body cam footage, you just show the back of another officer's neck and his shirt.
Okay, so the body cam basically shows the back of another correctional officer's back. Someone's blocking the camera.
Yes.
And those officers who were involved in restraining and beating him, did they have cameras on?
No.
No.
Nobody had body cam, but it was a sergeant, and his body cam was like kind of low. It wasn't where it's supposed to be at. And then what they do now, they stand in front of the camera, so nothing is being recorded.
It sounds a little bit similar with the Messiah Nantry case, in which you had a sergeant who did have a body camera on, that the sergeant was looking in a different direction and not looking toward what was happening to Messiah.
That's terrible.
And so he was beaten. He mentioned in that clip that I just played from Sarah Wallace from the audio that they grabbed his genitalia, they grabbed his private parts.
Yes.
After that occurred, did he receive any kind of medical treatment initially after that?
No, they took him to get an x-ray in the facility, and it was a nurse that was talking to him about his results. And she told him that it was a fracture in his ribs. But as soon as the sergeant walked in, he told her to be quiet because that's confidential.
Okay. And after that, was he taken back to his normal housing unit?
He went back to solitary confinement, where they took all his clothes off. They cut off his shirt, his t-shirt, his pants, left him in a cell for about 10 minutes or so with just his socks and his boots on. They took all type of pictures of him naked, you know, telling him to turn left, turn right, bend over, and he don't know where those pictures are or why did
Okay.
he need to take those pictures.
Okay. And his and the audio tapes that we played here, he said that they have not been feeding him, that they'll, I guess later on, he says they'll come and bring a tray, but there's no food on the tray.
Yes, at first they were giving him nothing, like nothing at all, like just the bread, a piece of butter, and like a Kool-Aid packet, and then he had no water to drink also. Then the majority of the time they gave him anything. When they did give him a tray, which was rare, half of the time it was empty, like a bag with nothing in it, a styrofoam container with either maybe a piece of bread or two, spork, butter, and a Kool-Aid packet. But majority of the time he got nothing. And when some officers decided to actually give him a tray with food on it, all the food was all shift. It was like shooken up, and they like gave it to him. So everything was mixed together.
Wow. Wow. And then, Keisha, you had mentioned to me that you've attempted to, mail in packages for him in the past, and he hasn't received those packages, correct?
Correct. I sent him a package. It arrived February 13th from Amazon. And I sent him like, the underwear, the socks, the t-shirts, food, and, hygiene stuff, soap and things. He never received it. It's April. He still has not received it. And I asked about it, and they're telling me he got to write a grievance for it. They don't know where it's at, basically. And they saying maybe we sent it back, but I called Amazon and never was sent back. So basically, they just kept my package with all my stuff in it.
Okay. And prior and during while Keon has been in the shoe, he's had legal paperwork, and has he still have access to his belongings, his legal documentation?
No, they're not. They're supposed to give him, I think, 5 stamps to send out legal mail, and they're not doing that. He had a couple papers, but they kind of much like destroyed it. And they're not giving him his mail he's supposed to. And when they give it to him, it's like, past the time period it's supposed to be in.
Okay. Okay. Now, one thing we heard in the Sarah Wallace clip was that the officers are saying that he assaulted them.
Right.
Is there any truth to that?
No truth at all. I mean, from my point, because he told me what happened, and I'm looking like, how can he attack 10 correctional officers? And it's just, if he's a thin kid, maybe about 120 pounds at the point now, because he lost some weight. So how can he, attack 9 officers? They're saying that he went up to an officer, ran back, and he just kicked him out of nowhere. And then he said that he kicked him in his shin. And then they said he kicked Officer Hanks in his chest. But if he was against the wall, how can he kick anybody in the chest? Or why would he just deliberately kick an officer in the shin knowing that he can get beat up?
Wow. So today, Keisha, you had mentioned that you went to go visit him in Attica, correct?
Yes.
And for me, when I think of Attica being one of the worst prisons in New York State, probably one of the most scariest prisons. So for anyone who's never been to Attica, either as someone who's been incarcerated or someone who's visited a family member or a loved one, can you talk to us about the actual experience of going to visit somebody in Attica?
First of all, you have to get there super early to get and able to get in. They make you wait. They try to make you wait. They wait you out basically so you don't get in. Like, they want you to get discouraged and leave. So they have you wait forever for your loved one to come down to the visiting area. But overall, when I went into the facility, it was very dirty. It was filthy in there. It's nasty. It needs to be updated. It needs to be clean. It's horrible.
And in terms of the staff there, how do the staff okay, so how have you been treated going to go visit your son in Attica from the staff?
They were sort of kind of okay, because I'm pretty sure they know what's going on, as far as the news clip and things like that and all the emails. So they were kind of like giving me like the side eye, but not really trying to be nasty because they don't know. They know that what's going on, so they're basically trying to be cautious of what's going on with Keon.
And so we actually have a comment here that actually a question that I want to pull up from Curtis Thompson. Curtis Thompson asked, so has Keon Walker's status changed? Has his status changed since then?
No, it has not. Everything remains the same.
Okay. And in fact, so what happened with his ticket? Because you mentioned that, or Sarah Wallace mentioned that they said he attacked a correctional officer. I'm assuming he's had a disciplinary hearing.
Yes,
And what was? Yeah, I'm
he
sorry.
lost the hearing, of course, because they said that he attacked the 10 correctional officers. He bit a guy twice. He kicked one in the shin, one in the chest. He resisted arrest. He he was a disturbance in like the hallway. So of course he lost, and they gave him 300 plus days in the solitary confinement.
300 plus days.
I think it's like 350 days if I'm exact, in solitary confinement.
Wow, 350 days in solitary. So you mentioned that that he had representation from prisoner legal services.
Yes.
Okay. And from your experience, do you know, is that common for people to have legal representation in these hearings, or is that really
No,
that doesn't happen too often?
it doesn't happen too often.
No.
But they're basically helping a lot of people now because they're getting calls of what's going on with the inmates, how they're being beaten, tortured, and attacked, and the COs are getting away with it. So they're stepping up more to help the inmates more than they did in the past.
Okay. Okay. And what did Keon tell you about the disciplinary process or his attorney? Was it fair and to any extent? Did they listen to him? And did she request to see videos? And what was the reaction to her, to his attorney being there?
They didn't like it at first because first he went in and he asked to adjourn it because he wanted his lawyer. He brought the lawyer, and basically when she was on via phone and she was asking a lot of questions and she wanted to see camera footage, body cams, pictures. She wanted to know his medical records for as far as his x-ray. They were pretty much being nasty with her. They denied her mostly everything. They did give her the body cam footage 2 weeks later, and then they gave her the camera from the hallway. But again, it didn't show anything that he did to anyone.
Wow. Okay. So there was actually a question here that I think True Patriot attempted to answer. Loca asks, when is his release date?
His release date is supposed to be July 6, 2025.
Okay. But since he was sentenced to 350 days, is that going to change because of this new sentence?
That I'm not really sure. I'm trying to find
Not
out
really
through
sure.
his lawyer. Maybe I'm asking her to dig into that a little bit for me because that's a question that I need to know as well, and he's wondering as well.
Mm. Wow. Well, we have a True Patriot has a comment. True Patriot asks, Keisha, talk about when they put him in the cold room.
Oh yes, they once they seen the news clip about him on with Sarah Wallace, he signed up to go to rec, and they came and got him, and he thought he was going to rec with other people, and they took him into a room, but it was like a cell sort of, and they cut the cold air on for 4 hours, left him in there all alone, and he had just had on just a t-shirt, and he asked him can he go back to his cell because it was cold or get a coat. They told him no, you signed up for rec, you're going to stay here, and he kept him there in the cold room for 4 hours. His hands and feet were numb, so by the time he got out, he had to kind of rub his hands together and rub his feet together to get his body back warm to normal temperature.
So this rec room, was there stuff to do in the rec room, weights or basketball or anything, or
No,
what?
it was like a cell, and they kind of, it was like a cell, kind of like a room, and they just cut the air up really, really high. So he was in there by himself. He thought he was going to go with, other inmates to get a break out of the solitary confinement, and that's not what they did. They took him by himself with the COs, put him in this room, cut the air on, froze him out, and then took him out after he couldn't take it no more for like 4 hours.
Then, in terms of your visit with him today, are you able to have, skin to skin contact and give him a hug? Is there like plexiglass? How does that work?
He was behind. It was like a bar, it's like a little hole, and where I could just hold his hands, and it's like that's it. I just was able to touch his hands, and like we could talk through like a gate.
Okay, so you're having a visit with him, and there's a gate,
Yes,
bars in the middle, and then you're able just to hold hands, but that's it.
yes. So
Okay,
no hugging or
and
anything else.
and talk to us about his spirits, about his like, how is he feeling? Is he disappointed by the disciplinary hearing?
He's very. I mean, he's angry. He's really angry about him being in solitary confinement for 350 days, and also about the situation. Period, because he knows he didn't do anything, and now he's being held accountable for something that he didn't do, and they're walking away scot free. So that makes him feel away, because now they're walking around, they laugh at him, they come to his cell, they sing racist songs like Wade in the Water, and they laugh at him, and so they trying to
You said
intimidate.
wade in the water.
Yep, it's like they trying to sing like racist songs to get him to react.
Okay, so you're saying that they're trying to intentionally antagonize him
Yes.
to do something, whether it be like physical.
Yep, they walk by his cell, they like tap on the glass to wake him up, to be funny.
And how is Keon just, staying strong and staying sane? Because I can't imagine, having to undergo that treatment consistently, day to day to day to day. Like,
Well,
what?
I keep him sane because he's able to call me, and he calls me for hours back to back to back. So we talk like pretty much for 3 to 4 hours every day. Because without that, he has really, between him talking to myself and my mom, but he talks to me more. And it's like I kind of just chat with him and try to think it for the positive. Tell him, when you get out, we're gonna go here, we're gonna do this. Keep his mind off, being in that solitary confinement in that little cell, you know. But sometimes he gets angry, and I have to talk to him and calm him down. And remember, if you get angry, you can't do that, because then you letting them win.
Okay, okay. So, just out of curiosity, for anyone in the chat, if you or anyone that you've loved has been in solitary confinement, can you just write about your experience in the chat? Uh, how was the experience? Because I hear a lot of people come out of solitary confinement having PTSD, having some severe mental issues, because people are being in solitary confinement in the SHU for an extended period of time. I mean, like, so you mentioned, Keisha, 300 days. So
Yeah.
300 days, I can't even imagine 300 days. So just so people understand, and actually, I'm having another guest on. After I talk to Keisha, I'm having a young man by the name of Sean come on, who has a good amount of experience being in solitary confinement. But so, Keisha, can you talk about what solitary confinement for Keon is right now, like day to day, and how that looks, to paint a clearer picture?
It's like it's a really small cell. Everything is like closed in. Basically, when he stands up, he's as tall as a cell. His legs are just as long as the cell. Also, it's just like a small room, about maybe about that big, with a hard bed, like a desk, and a water. The toilet is over the water. I mean, the water is over the toilet. Sorry, and it's like everything is just right there. and around his cell he has it's called a plexiglass, basically.
Okay.
They put like a shield over his cell because they say that he attacked the staff. So it's basically to prevent him from attacking staff from here on out. And it's like a one by one. It's like a big door, a solid door with a one by one, like a little crack in the door where you can kind of like just put your mouth to the crack and speak out. And if no one knows you're in there, they can't hear you because it's like you got to yell really hard and very loud because you're yelling through the glass and that little small piece. There was like a little hole in the supposed to be like a little window on the door.
Okay. And there was one thing I heard in terms of the lighting situation. I've read some stories in terms of the lights being on for 24 hours at a time and not having the ability to turn the light on and off, not knowing what time it is. Is that Keon's situation or no?
Sometimes they do. It all depends what staff is on. But what they do also is they he has in his cell basically where they can cut the light on and off from on the outside. And if they cut it off, people can't see him inside. So if he's trying to cut it on and say he wants medical attention or to get their attention for anything, they'll cut the light off permanently so he can't cut it on. So then if they walking with the tablets and if they can't see him, they'll walk past him. So he has to like stand up basically and like say, Walker, I'm up, so they can, stop and give him his tablet or even food.
Wow. Wow. So can you talk to us, Keisha, about the advocacy that you've done to try to get your son some help in terms of some justice for the officers that attacked him? I mean, I'm assuming maybe like politicians or, I mean, I'm very grateful that Sarah Wallace covered this, and that's a big deal. But can you talk to us about what other actions that you've taken to get your son some help?
I've spoke to several people. I've sent out dozens and dozens of emails and letters and phone calls. And like I called a superintendent from Attica. I've called Docs. I've called Albany. I've called OSI, and it's like no response. They say, "Oh, we're gonna look into it," and I have heard nothing back since March.
Since March. Wow. 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 Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell us about your son, about his case, anything that the world needs to know?
I'm going to say this is for all inmates, all people who have a loved one in prison. Please check on them, because despite about what the situation is with that person, now is the time to love on them and love them up, because right now they're being tortured. They're in the cells 24 hours a day. Some people are not eating, as far as Keon, and their mental, it's driving these people crazy because they can't get out. Imagine being locked in a cell 24 hours a day for 300 plus days and not being able to see like the outside or really interact with another human being besides them, and being treated, really nasty. As far as Keon, his case is just all over. I just feel so bad for him. And like I said, I'm going to fight and keep fighting to get my son justice and let these officers pay for what they did, because nobody deserves this treatment that they're doing to them. They don't deserve. They're still human beings, despite of whatever their crime is. They're still human, and they don't deserve to be treated like dogs. And that's how they're being treated.
Okay. All right, Keisha. Well, listen, we are definitely, praying for you and praying for your son. And there are a lot of people here on this channel who have been doing some advocacy work and, emailing and making calls and trying to get the word out there, because it's very, very easy to forget people who are incarcerated. It's
Right.
very easy. And it's very tough because they, barely have a voice,
Right.
and sometimes we get messages from the family members of their cellmates to let their family members know that they've been beaten, that they've been mistreated, because the person who's been beaten cannot get a hold of their family members directly.
Of course.
So it's very important to really follow up and check in and be sure that your family member is good. So So I'm outraged by this.
This is horrifying. Like these
Yeah,
people,
it's
they do not deserve that at all.
mm, yeah. So Keisha, I'm definitely going to continue to stay in touch with you
Okay.
and follow up. So as of now, he has a release date of July, which may or may not be jeopardized because of this ticket. Correct?
Correct.
So um, the good thing is he has an attorney from Prisoner Legal Services,
Yes.
and let's hope for the best with Keon, and let's hope for justice.
Thank you so much. I want to say I appreciate you for everything, for putting my son's story out there, because a lot of people have reached out and said, "Oh, I seen you on YouTube." You know, I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, because without the people that's helping me, I wouldn't know where to start. It's hard.
No, thank you. And listen, this definitely has to be a grassroots type of thing. It has to be a grassroots type of thing. And the first thing I want to do is thank. We have a super chat from the introvert rock star. He's been covering the Robin Brooks case. Introvert, thank you so much for the super chat. And for those of you who don't know who he is, check out his channel because he's covering a lot of these cases, a lot of these abuses that's occurring in the correctional system. He's covering abuses in Louisiana. So
Wow.
definitely go and show him some love. Okay. So thank you, introvert. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you. And Keisha, you have an open invitation to come here whenever you want.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, Keisha. I will talk to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. That was Keisha Wong. That was Keon Walker's mom. So we thank her for coming on, and we thank her for sharing her story and sharing her son's story. Oftentimes, it's the mothers, of those who are incarcerated who are the biggest, the biggest bulldogs, the biggest advocates, and trying to advocate for their sons, for their nephews, for their cousins. So we definitely thank her for coming on and sharing the story and being a big advocate for her son. So thank you for that. Um, the thing I want to do now is before I actually jump to our next guest, we have a young man by the name of Sean who will be coming up in a few minutes. But I just want to go to the chat real quick and just acknowledge some people and welcome everyone. So we have Eastern Queens Community Issues watching from New York. Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate that. We have Sunset saying, I'll check back later. Well, hopefully, Sunset, hopefully you're here now. We got R.O. Plo from Ontario, Toronto, Ontario. Thank you for being here. I think we have people from all across the globe, all across the United States of America. So thank you for being here. We have R. Plo, who just became a YouTube member. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. We got Leslie Scott from Rochester, New York. Leslie from Rochester, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. We have Elizabeth Miller back from PA. Hello, Elizabeth. She also says, how does anyone survive this horrible mess? Um, how does anyone come out of this situation not having severe post-traumatic stress disorder? I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that. We have Thomas Wyatt. My prayers go out to Keon's family, and Keon, God bless you. Stay strong. Definitely, she will convey these messages to Keon, and let's pray that he remains strong and doesn't succumb to the stress and being antagonized. Um, okay, all right. So let's go to a couple more chats. We have Nona E828. Attica doesn't play fair either. I've done it. I've done multiple videos on Attica. I've covered some cases of correctional officers being charged and being arrested. So Attica has a long history of abuse, of abuse. Let's jump to a couple of more comments. Leslie says he has PTSD. I would imagine that. I would imagine that. Arplo says, why do human rights organizations exist? Yeah, I mean, there are fundamental human rights that we all have, regardless of what we are convicted of. You know, our human rights don't end at the end or at the front doors of a correctional facility. We still have the right to life, the right of humanity. So this is you know, pretty alarming. James says we need to flood the warden. This is on him 100%, 100%. So I want to thank everyone. I also want to again thank Introvert Rockstar with the super chat. I will link up his channel below. Thank you so much for that, Introvert. Really appreciate it. Definitely go and check him out. He's doing some great things on YouTube. A lot of subs. Oh, and this leads me to my last marketing talk, right? So for those of you on, if you can do me a favor, please like the video, comment below, share the video, and subscribe. So there's also one thing I do want to say, right? So in life, sometimes we have relationships and we haven't labeled our relationships, but there really are something, right? So for any of you, if you've ever dated anyone and you've met their family, you spend a lot of time in their house and you know their friends, but you refuse to call yourselves boyfriend and girlfriend. Okay. So for many of you watch my videos. Many of you watch them on a consistent basis, but you haven't officially subscribed yet, right? So I would say for those of you who have not subscribed, if you've watched several of my videos and you've liked them, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps. It really helps push out these videos because YouTube is really not pushing out this kind of content. It's not very popular. So if you can do me that favor and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. I really appreciate it. Okay. So Sean, I'm actually about to call you up. Sean, are you there? I know Sean's in the back. Okay. Here we go. I see Sean. I'm going to bring you up.
How you
Sean,
doing?
how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. So, Sean, why don't you tell the people who you are and your background?
So I'm Sean Chung. I'm formerly incarcerated. I did approximately 8 years in total, leading up to 10 years in criminal justice period impacted. I've been in Attica. I've been in Clinton, Auburn, 5 Points, Marcy, Green, Wash, Bear Hill, upstate, downstate. I've been in a lot of different facilities, and I've been set up by officers, beat up by officers, threatened, weapons planted on me. I've had to appeal different things for myself and for others. I worked in a library, and I helped over 500 different people while I was in Marcy and in upper facilities as well. I now work for a criminal justice reform organization in New York City. So this is something that I enjoy doing. I was recently released last year as well.
Oh, okay. Welcome. So, Sean, one thing I want to do is I want to show you a comment that one of my viewers made real quick. Okay. So I'm going to try to make this bigger if I can. If I can't, I will just read it to you. So, okay. So I will read this to you because for some reason I'm having a hard time making this bigger. Okay, so here's a comment from one of my videos. And Sean, I want you to be honest and respond to this. Okay? You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so it says, I was a New York State CO. I worked SHU. This is comical. And this person was referencing a video I made on Keon Walker.
Okay.
He says there is a vent in each cell. The officers have no way to turn the ventilation system off. Guaranteed he was seen by medical upon entry. Guaranteed they have pictures of him and his injuries upon entry. There is a logbook documenting what time he was fed and if he accepted his meal. There is a logbook is inspected by supervisors of all ranks up to the superintendent. Their signatures are in that feed up log each day. Their medical staff has to sign in each time they enter SHU. The entry logbook for SHU will show all signatures of all staff from medical to mental health. This is a fairy tale. This is a fairy tale story this kid is telling.
Okay,
All
you
right.
can leave that up there. Don't click it off.
Okay.
So
Okay.
everything that this officer has said is true all up until the last line. This is a fairy tale story this kid is telling. All you have to do is scratch that last line out. So the only thing that's comical is his statement. He's a joke. There is a vent in each cell, yes, and they do have ways to turn the ventilation system off. They do control that. So now, upon entry, yes, you are seen by medical. But as you can see with Robert Brooks, medical just stood there and watched until he died, right? Let's be real. So if you have officers that tell medical staff to just sign them off and put no injuries, they're going to put that. I know because I've seen it in almost 11 different prisons. They have done that. That's the normal. And I'm a little, I'm highly upset and disturbed by listening to Keisha's story. And it's a little bit more shocking and disturbing by hearing his mom tell the story, because I never heard it from a person's mom. So that kind of has me in shock. And then it kind of brought back past instances where I went through the kind of stuff that she's explaining and breaking down. So I'm kind of really highly upset right now. So I'm going to try my best to focus on this. But yeah, upon entry, you see the medical staff, and medical staff will say, oh, this guy is bleeding, this guy has a cut, this guy has bruises, and put on the paper, no injuries listed. And then they will tell you to sign off. They will actually force you to sign off. Or if you don't sign off, they'll beat you up and sign it anyways with like a slash or an X, or they'll put refuse to sign. So now the pictures now, they will leave you in the SHU for approximately a week or 2 weeks until you heal, and then double back and take the photos of you.
Oh,
That's their way of getting around the injuries part. The logbook, yes, they have a logbook when they enter the SHU, which cells they stopped at, and when they exit the SHU. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they documented that he was seen. They could easily appear on camera, stopping at the cell to speak to him. That could mean anything. Just the same way they did to Robert Brooks, how there was no microphone. Yeah. There was no microphone, so you didn't know what the hell was being said. And most of the times it's racial epithets, or it's just them telling you, we're not going to help you. Your light was off. And they have control of your power. They shut your power off so you can't flick the light switch on. If they don't like you, if you have assault on staff, if you have a sexual charge, anything having to do with sexual conduct, if you have any kind of assault on staff or sexual conduct, or if they just don't like you for who you are, they won't help you. They will cut your power off and you won't have access to anything. And that's one of their main tactics that they use. I know because I lived through it for many years. So the stuff that he's saying doesn't make any sense, right? And medical staff is in on it too. They're in on it. So this is not a fairy tale story. This is actually a story that has been going on for years, probably even before I was born. They just got smarter. They adapted to the criminal justice system. They figured out ways how to get around the laws and rules and regulations and make it assume that proper care and custody is being delivered to these incarcerated individuals, which is not, which is horrible and very disturbing. And I'm highly upset that he would even try to spin this tale and word it in a way that's very disturbing. It's disturbing that he can go to sleep at night and lie. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it seems like what he's speaking about is just procedure and what's supposed to happen on paper, right? Because you can have a procedure in terms of what's supposed to happen, and this might be accurate to some extent, but it doesn't mean that the abuses aren't occurring and that people aren't going around this and people aren't following this. So like having a system on paper is one thing, and in practice, this is something else.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely something else.
And
so,
his story. His story is just it sounds like he just tailored the policy and procedure, or just copied and pasted the policy and procedure and tried to explain it in his way to make it sound smart to the viewers. That's all he did.
Okay. Wow. So you had mentioned, Sean. Oh, hold on. Sorry about that. So you had mentioned, Sean, that you've been in various facilities all throughout New York State. And how many different facilities were you in during your experience?
Probably 10 or 11.
10 or 11. 10 or 11. And out of 11, like, which facility do you think was the worst facility to be in?
The worst facility, and I think everybody that's incarcerated that has, we call it a world tour when you have been through multiple different facilities, would be Governor. Governor,
Really?
on any given day, you can see an incarcerated individual getting dragged by his face down the walkway or getting beat half to death in the infirmary, anywhere in the mess hall, in the infirmary, in the school building, or even in the dorms. My first day getting off the draft bus to go to my assigned dorm, I watched officers beating a guy half to death. And at that time, I was on crutches and a walking boot. And an officer attempted to kill me just because I couldn't get out of bed when I was on crutches and I had a torn Achilles. So that facility was one of the worst facilities I ever entered. And that facility really, really made me want to bring full accountability and full transparency and get rid of qualified immunity for these officers. It's my life's goal now after leaving that facility and Marcy. So those two facilities. So I understand.
So for anyone who's had zero experience in the criminal justice system with the Department of Corrections, state, what exactly is the SHU? What is solitary confinement? What is it, and tell me what it's not, because a lot of people have this belief of what solitary confinement is. There was actually a gentleman who did a roundtable discussion that I've covered, and he said solitary confinement was not solitary confinement because you had people in cells to the left of you and to the right of you, but even though you were alone in that cell, that's not solitary confinement. So why don't you tell me, like, what is solitary confinement and how does it manifest in the New York State Department of Corrections?
Okay, so I'll basically give you a breakdown of it. And it's actually not even called solitary confinement anymore, or the SHU. So as an incarcerated individual, the name that we called it was the box. Everybody knew it as the box. The prior name, or the original name, was the SHU. It's now known as the RRU, the Residential Rehabilitation Unit. So for me, I, just like the lady, Keon Walker's mom, just like her son, I was set up by an officer in a facility where they tried to plant a weapon on me because I didn't want to become a confidential informant and work for them. And I wasn't going for that. And they jumped me, probably like 20 or 30 officers jumped me outside of the mess hall and then set me up. And I told my story to the hearing officers, and the hearing officers was like, hey, we believe you. We already understand this officer is known for doing this, but we have a job to do and we have to back the blue. So we're going to give you a year in the SHU. And they left me.
So you had to hear. I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish, and then I have a question.
Before I continue, I'll break that down to you too. So every time you get a misbehavior report, they call it a ticket. A ticket is slang for misbehavior report, right? And it goes by tiers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. When you have a fight with an officer, or if you get set up by an officer who said that you assaulted him, you get a tier 3, which is the highest tier. So this tier can go anywhere from a year in the box to 3 years in the box. Now they have this RRU where you get 2 or 3 time cuts. So you can't do as much time in the SHU unless they override that by law. They were supposed to get rid of that, but now they had that protest where you can do a max amount of time in the shoe again, which is terrible. It's like reversing civil rights. Anyways, so I stayed in what's called the small shoe. They keep you in the small shoe before they load you up and package you up like a package and put you on a bus and send you to the big shoe. So the small shoe is literally silence. There's nothing. You could hear a pin drop. You could hear a mouse squeak. That's how silent it is. If you talk, they won't feed you. They will starve you. They will literally starve you. The nurses don't help you. Me, they beat me almost half to death. So I sat in this cell literally for 3 days, and a nurse came and I told her I need to speak to my family. I think I'm going to die. I think they're going to kill me. And this lady had the nerve to open the hatch. It's like a feed up hatch. It's a slot, as if you're an animal. It's like you're a farm animal. They open this little square hatch on a metal door with a little window, probably about this big. And the feed up hatch is probably half the size of your laptop screen. And they open this, and she put one pill, one Tylenol, 5 or 10 milligram on the slot and closed it, and it fell on the floor. And I took that, and it didn't do anything. I was beat black and blue. My eyes were closed. And then they waited to take the picture of me. That was the nurse coming to see me. And I couldn't even get out of bed. I couldn't even sound. I had to roll out of bed. Then they cut my power off, right? The only thing that worked was the emergency light in the cell. That light stayed on all day and all night, and it burned. It felt like a UV light. And it's blinding. You can't sleep. Even if you put the blankets over your head, it goes straight through the blankets. And then they cut my sink off. The sink is attached to the toilet. It's a sink toilet combination. So where you go to brush your teeth is the same place where you defecate. And I understood where Keon was coming from, because I too had to steal a cup kind of similar to this cup, and it was brown and it was smaller, about this big. And I had to drink the toilet water to survive. And the only thing they would give you is a little bit of bread, probably half a loaf of bread. And I had to drink the toilet water, or I would have died. I would have succumbed to my injuries. So from there, after probably about 30 days of eating bread and drinking toilet water, they told me to turn around and put my hands through the slot. And mind you, I was maced with 2 cans of mace to my face. They literally grabbed my head like this and put it in my nose and in my throat and in my eyes and in my ears. The only way I could breathe was through a little whistle, a little hole in my nose this big, and it used to whistle when I breathed. And they didn't give me any medical attention. But on that medical form, the nurses signed off and said he got medical attention and he's fine. So I literally had to wash my face in the toilet because they cut my power off. And they don't clean those cells. They don't clean them. They only mop the hallways. They don't clean inside the cells. Inside of those cells are like century-old dungeons. You can smell the old blood. You can smell the pain, suffering, the tears. You can smell it. It's like, I can't even get into full detail. That's how disturbing it is to me. It's even traumatizing me just telling you about the small shoe. I didn't even get to the big shoe yet. So now they load you up on this bus, and the first thing they tell you is, when you get on this bus, you shut the fuck up or we will kill you. And this is their exact words. You get on this bus and you shut the fuck up or we'll kill you. We've done it before. Play if you want. And they literally tell you, when we get to this big box, if we identify you as the one talking, we're going to kill you when we get there. And they're very serious too, because when you get in there, all you can hear is the loud thuds and the screaming. They separate people. They put you in these huge cages and they separate you from everyone else. And all you can hear is, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then you hear the thuds getting louder and louder, and you hear the I'm sorry's getting lower and lower. And then you can smell the mace. You can smell it from a mile away. It smells like hot sauce times 10. And then from there, the screams get lower and lower. And then you can hear this person calling out to mom or calling out to God. Then it just goes quiet. And then you never see the person again. And then if you notify OSI, the Office of Special Investigations, which is supposed to be the ones that regulate what's going on in these facilities, they're in on it too. These are their cousins. These are their uncles. These are their grandfathers. They come in and say, hey, this guy, DIN number, because they don't go by our names. They go by DIN numbers. This guy, and my DIN number was 16A1495. This guy, 16A1495, notified us of you doing something to this guy. You better handle this. So what they do is they put you on something called the wheel. They will put you on a draft and send you from prison to prison to prison. So when your family tries to locate you, or if you have to get mail from Albany, or if you file the appeal or anything like that, your mail won't get to you in time for the deadline. And once you miss the deadline for your grievance process, which is your way of getting transparency and accountability to these people, it disappears or it's eliminated and there's no way to get it back. So now all of your rights are flushed down the toilet and they'll laugh in your face, like I told you. And then they'll find out different ways to get you. So if they can't physically get you, like me, I was a bigger guy. So they say, okay, we know what we can do. We could just put different levels in the room with him that have problems and can't go back to population and want to stay in the box for their own safety with you. So they put this guy in my cell that was a level 1S. So level 1S's are people that are not supposed to be with anybody else. These are the guys that have serious mental health issues, but they don't get the mental health treatment that they deserve. The staff that are trained from mental health, they don't do anything. They don't do shit. Excuse my language. They don't do nothing. They come there and get paid to do nothing. And some days I used to say, I'm in the wrong line of work. I wish I could be a mental health or a CO. So now when I got to the big shoot, they destroyed all of my property. And they said, you assaulted one of our brothers in blue in the last facility? Okay, we got a trick for you. And they starved me. They starved me. They didn't feed me
Sean,
for about
yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. I wanted to ask you about something you said previously, because it was very important for me. You mentioned the disciplinary process and how they put you on a wheel so that once you initiate some sort of disciplinary process against an officer, you contact OSI, that they can't get a hold of you. Can you just maybe elaborate more on that and just help us understand how that works?
the process for the grievance.
Yeah, you were saying
the
like if you had a
contacting
grievance
OSI part.
against it. Yeah, kind of both, because you said if you have a grievance against an officer, you contact OSI. They end up attempting to move you from facility so that you are not able to be a part of the grievance process. Is that correct?
Yes, so I'll break that down to you. So, because I've
Mhm.
actually helped hundreds of people with this process. So when you first get a misbehavior report, the first thing they try to get you to do is plead guilty immediately. Once you plead guilty, it's just like a court of law. Once you plead guilty, almost 7/8 of your rights are gone. And it's basically unappealable. So now when you finally realize what happened and you file this grievance, the grievance is the first process to filing a lawsuit. And they notice. So if people are ignorant to the law, they capitalize on this. That's the only way you can get your remedy through to the courts. So the grievance is called an administrative appeal. First, you file the grievance, and then you file the tier 3 appeal. The tier 3 appeal goes back to the hearing officer, and then from there they deny it, and then it goes up to the superintendent. Once you appeal it again, the superintendent then denies it. From there, you have to put what's called an Article 78. And Article 78, you have to get from law library. So now this is where the light comes into play. You have to have your light on and be standing on your door at a certain time. Sometimes it's early in the morning, like 6 in the morning, they come around. Or sometimes even 5 in the morning when everybody's basically asleep. They come around before breakfast time. And you know, breakfast is super early. And if they don't like you, or if they know you're a person that files grievances, they're going to cut your power off so you don't have the ability. So what people do is they will bang on their neighbor's door and try to talk to them through the vents. If they have a neighbor that has the mental awareness to speak to you, because some people, like I told you, are level 1S's, they don't have that cognitive ability. So now, once you get the Article 78 form, you might have to get it from your neighbor. He has to fish it to you under the door. You have to literally create a whole system to get this from somebody next door to you if they have deemed you to be an asshole, or if they don't like you because you have assault on staff. You get this form now, you fill it out. It's probably about anywhere from 15 to 10 pages. And then you have to get this form notarized. That's another hassle where you have to have your light on. So if you don't have your light on, you cannot get this form these court documents notarized. So this is another tactic where you have to wake up early in the morning, or sometimes you don't know who the notary officer is. So now you have to play Where's Waldo and guess who's the notary officer, and they won't tell you. And sometimes they don't even wear their identification on their chest. So now you have to kind of figure it out. You have to be aware of who the officer is. So whoever stops at your gate or whoever's doing feed ups for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you have to kind of listen out for their names, or you have to hear their buddies say their names. I'm like, okay, this is the guy I have to stop now. And he could be a complete dickhead, excuse my language, or a complete asshole and say, I'm not servicing you. So now you have to wait a whole month to find another notary officer or a notary civilian. So now let's say you do get it notarized. Now you have to make 3 copies of it. One goes to the courts, one goes to the attorney general, and one you keep a copy for yourself. And then you have to send 3 additional copies to the courts.
And
so now,
and all this is supposed to be happening by someone who's in solitary with no access to a lot of services.
Yes. So this is the ultimate struggle. Trust me. This is many nights of pain and suffering. And once they call you a legal beagle, they'll say, yeah, don't stop at 15 cell. That's a legal beagle. He's trying to file a lawsuit against us. He's trying to harm us. So they go out of their way to make sure that you don't get the job done, especially if you don't have family support. So I really appreciate what Keon Walker's mom is doing, because when they see that you don't have family support, then they go out of their way to try to kill you, or they go out of their way to really violate your human rights. This is their tactic. They look at your phone logs, look at the records, they look at your visiting list. And if they see that you don't have any family support, you're free reign, because they know nobody's going to care. They could just bury you under the jail and nobody will look for you. They target people like prey. They're like predators sometimes. So now you do end up filing it with the courts. Now you have to deal with the mail officer. It's when the mail officer feels like sending it out. So he could leave your mail up front sitting there waiting. And then you have to wait for stamps from commissary if you can't afford to do certified mail return receipt. So now, and then you have to get it stamped legal mail from a legal mail officer. So you have all of these barricades, all of these pitfalls, and all of these hurdles you have to overcome just to get a document sent to the courts, just to initiate. This is just the initial process. This is step 1.
Wow.
This is step 1. And just to get heard probably takes about a year. So you'll probably be out of the box by the time you get heard. And 9 times out of 10, the judge is going to deny you. If you ever look at all the case laws for people in the shoe, you're going to see people that got assaulted by staff and got blamed for the assaults at an all-time high. And they use this as a tactic for workers' comp. I guarantee you, if you was to look into the OSI reports, you'll see probably 10, 15 officers off at workers' comp around a certain time of the year over and over again. And it's the same scenario with a guy that spun off the wall. That happened to me too. Hey, keep your hands on the wall. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. And next thing you know, I'm getting 5 punches to the back of my head and knees to my nuts. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And then there's nowhere to go. There's no one to go to. Who do you ask for help? This is what really killed me on the inside mentally. When you have the people that's supposed to protect you, the people that sign an oath, especially the medical staff that sign an oath to their offices, they're supposed to be the ones to protect you. And they're the ones brutalizing you and abusing you. Where do you turn for help? Where do you go? The only other step is the courts. And this is what really blew my mind when I was working in a library, right? DOCCS has correctional law. Correctional law is above judicial law. When you look at legislative law, correctional law, judicial law, DOCCS is above judicial law. So you can have a judge issue a decree or whatever they want to call it to DOCCS, and DOCCS can say, we're going to override that. We're going to override that. They're basically their own separate entity from society.
Can you give me an example of how docs can override that?
Perfect. Let's look at parole law, section 803 or 259I. When you have parole, if you have a guy that has shown that he has been fully rehabilitated, he hasn't had any misbehavior reports for the past 5-10 years. This guy is a doctor now. He has a master's or a doctorate degree in science, right? And he's doing all of the programs for the past 5 years. He's helped people be rehabilitated. He's led all the anger management groups, all the substance abuse groups. He has certifications stacked up to the ceiling. A commissioner can say, I personally feel through my own discretion that you don't deserve your freedom. I don't care that you're fully rehabilitated. I want you to spend another 24 months in here, right? And then this guy would say, whoa, in accordance with section 259I of correctional law, it says that if I have completed all my mandatory programs and went above and beyond, you have to at least consider me for release. But there's a subclause and then a sub-subclause and subdivision of that says you're not going to get released based off of your good behavior. Whoa. So what is the point of the whole thing with docs? If I'm not supposed to be rewarded for good behavior, what is the point of me going to the parole board if you can have full discretion and full immunity? So now when I go to a judge and say, hey, judge, this is not due process. This doesn't make any sense. The judge is going to say, hey, blame the state legislators. They gave them full qualified immunity and full discretion to say, judge, fuck you. This is what I'm going to do. Excuse my language, but this is exactly how it is. And I have documents with a judge specifically telling me that too. Because I said, this doesn't make any sense. This is not fairness. This is not equal justice. This is a person playing the act of God. And a judge indirectly said, you're right. You're absolutely right. But there's nothing I can do. This is where the voting comes into play. This is where the people have the power to change that. This is where you have the power to say, I'm going to elect the new commissioners. I'm going to elect the new superintendent. I'm going to retrain and rehire these COs. I'm going to fire all the bad apples that when I check these OSR reports and I see that they have malicious intent and they've been attacking people for years. And these guys have 40 plus years, 30 plus years, and they're training these other guys to join this culture, because it's a culture. It's a culture within a culture. Because I can't say all of them are bad, but majority have this culture and they've been indoctrinated to hate the people that they are supposed to protect. These are our neighbors that are going to come home eventually. So now when you foster this habit of brutality and violence, what do you expect the person to come home and believe? They're going to have mistrust. Distrust for police, for judges, for lawyers, for cops, and then it's like, there's nothing you can do about it. So now it makes you feel less than human. It makes you feel inferior. You created a culture of fear and hate, and nothing happens when you file a report or when you complain. So who do you trust? Who do you go to? So what do I have to resort to get results? So now it's like, okay, you do the research and you find out who has the power to change this. Governor Kathy Hochul. And when you write her office, you get nothing. You get no results. You get a letter in the mail that says, I'm sorry, unfortunately, we're currently understaffed. We can't handle this. Then you write the Legal Aid Society and you write all these organizations that's supposed to be there to help you. And they tell you the same thing. We're sorry, we're understaffed. We can't help you. So now it's like, do we have to take the matters into our own hands? How do we get this thing solved? And then when you finally get something like Robert Brooks to happen, and you tell them, we've been telling you this for years. How can you say you possibly don't know when we've called your office personally? I personally had over 500 people send out mail. I personally had over 500 people get on the phone and call your office. So how could you not know? You have personal staff that report to you directly called CANI, Correctional Association of New York. And they received my letters. They received all the people I sent to you over the years. And I can only imagine all the other people that are being brutalized and they don't have a voice. And all they have is this. It's a little flimsy box pen. And they're writing with blood, sweat, and tears in their eyes, on their face. broken hands, broken ribs, broken bones. And this is all they have. You writing literally like this with something like this. You literally have to write with a piece of pen like this just to get a letter 4 months later saying, sorry, we can't help you. And then when the report for Candy did come out, I still didn't see any results. So it infuriates me. And I've made it my life's goal to go about getting this thing dismantled and rebuilt in the proper way that's really supposed to be built.
So how pervasive is the culture? You mentioned the culture is it's pretty bad. Do you think because some people want to say it's just a few bad apples? Is it just more than just a few bad apples, or is it just an entire culture that's just gone?
So it's not just a few bad apples. It's a lot more than just a few bad apples. And then you can't just blame it on the training either. That's the go-to excuse. They weren't properly trained. So what does proper training look like? What does a few bad apples look like? So how can you find out who the few bad apples are? If these officers know who the few bad apples are, why do they condone it?
No.
Yeah. It's a culture. It's a culture. If you go into any facility, the moment you step in there and they stop you at the door, the welcome wagon admissions department is telling you, hey, welcome to my facility. We are known to murder people here. We will murder you if you get out of line, and we'll get away with it. You can call SI, you can greet. This is the welcome wagon. Picture going into the store, and you step into the store, and they close the door and surround you and say, if you steal from the store, we're going to murder you. If you even breathe wrong in the store, we're going to murder you. And we'll get away with it because the cops are on our payroll. They work for us. We have the full discretion. We have full immunity to kill you. How does that feel? And then you have the reports. It's not just a few bad apples. It's because they have full immunity and they know this and they tell you this. It's the sergeants, it's the depths, it's the lieutenants, it's the captains, and it's the new recruits. Some of them fear for their lives. They tell them these individuals will try anything. They'll tell you anything to get into you. They'll try anything to get something from you. They don't care about you. Treat them like scum. If you get out of line, we got something for you. And I've seen this numerous times. I've seen how they indoctrinate them. I've seen sergeants pull people to the side and put weapons in their hand and say, go set that guy up. You got a quota to meet. That's a few bad apples. That's a supervisory staff member. So who do you complain to? Who do you go to? If you have a culture, especially high-ranking individuals that's supposed to be there to receive these complaints, being a part of the problem, they have to step up. The ones that say it's a few bad apples, they have to step up because they know who the few bad apples are. And they should be held accountable too. When the time comes, and the time will come, they will be held accountable because they knew. Like he said, they signed the log books, they logged in with them.
Yeah. And I think also due to the last couple of big cases, Robert Brooks, Messiah Nantry, you've been seeing the New York State Attorney General's office having to recuse themselves in these cases because you've had these same officers involved in those cases. They're being represented by the Attorney General in civil cases. So, like, we're seeing the same names, the same officers, being brought up who people have complained about them in the past, and they continue to work. They don't lose their jobs. There are no consequences for their actions.
Yeah, and it's disgusting. It's really disgusting to me, right? And one thing that I really am disgusted with is the fact that Letitia James wields two swords. She has one sword where she's defending the same crooked officers that beat people half to death on a daily basis in some of these facilities like Marcy, because I was there for 2 years, especially in Attica too, and Governor. Then she has the other sword where she hears the complaints from the victims. So you're judge, jury, and executioner, but you favor the officers. You favor them. But I'm not going to sit here and bash her. I commend her for releasing the video of Robert Brooks's death. Unfortunately, it had to come to that, and they were warned about that. Kenny released a report prior to that.
Yep.
So the blood is definitely on Letitia James's hands and on Kathy Hochul's hands because they knew, and they didn't do anything about it. They knew about it. They knew about the beatings. They knew about everything that was going on. Some of these facilities have been known for brutality for years, and nothing, not even a peep, not even a walkthrough. Kenny came in, and people told him, after we speak to you, some of us are going to get beat half to death. And I was one of the people there that told him that. I'm going to risk my freedom and my life to tell you my story because I know in the future that something is going to happen and this is going to come to the light. I'm going to risk my freedom. I'm going to be the martyr to save the next group of people coming in that need the actual treatment, that need the actual help. I will be the sacrificial lamb. And a lot of us sacrificed our freedom. And guess what happened? Once they walked out of that door, people were getting their skulls bashed in on their way to eat breakfast, skulls bashed in on their way to eat lunch and dinner, skulls bashed in inside of the school building. They were getting violated going to visits to speak to their family. Some of them, as soon as they got off the visit floor with their family, were getting beat up in these rooms. And there was no cameras. There was no cameras. There was never any accountability. And to this day, there's still no accountability. There was a video of Robert Brooks being beat half to death. I used to work there. I used to see this every day. They used to call me 8 p.m. at night. They used to call me 3 p.m. They used to call me in the morning time to come clean up blood, sweat, tears, teeth, braids, dreads, box braids, skin, feces, mace, daily, to the point where you got numb to it. That was normal to me. Seeing the violence was normal. It's still normal to me. So some of the stuff is like, I was sitting here with my friend and he's like, this is disturbing. This is terrible. And I'm like, I need help because this is normal to me. This is my normal. This was my normal for years. And to the point where it got numb to the people that lived in these conditions. This is a mental slavery to where you see people get brutalized every day. And it's not your average beatings that you see. It's not, all right, I'm going to discipline this person. This is a bad child, or this person committed a crime. No, this is actually, and sometimes before they used to have the nightsticks. That was even worse. It's like somebody swinging a baseball bat. Now they have the metal bars. Some of them come in with special gloves that have metal bars on the knuckles. And they practice UFC moves on us. They, at any given time, you could walk into the infirmary and see them watching UFC, waiting for something to happen. As soon as an alarm happens, they pile up in the van and ride on the side of the van and rush there. See who could get there first so they could practice and pummel people. That's not fair. That's not right. That's not right. Because if that was one of us, the first thing we would get is a year in the box and a new charge. But with them, it's good job. Now you got workers' comp. You got workers' comp for the next 6 months. Yeah, you jammed your finger, workers' comp. Yep, I'm gone. He attacked me. He spun around.
You know, there was another comment from a correctional officer on another one of my videos who said, those people who are incarcerated, they can assault a correctional officer and there are no consequences. Is that true?
Look at my finger. They used to be all the way down here. Some of these bruises on my face, they never went away. If you assault a correction officer, that's damn near a death sentence for you. It took me probably 3 years to get that stain off of my jacket. Literally. When you attack a correction officer, that's probably the worst thing you could ever do. That's off limits. Everybody knows that you don't do that. Everybody. Nobody's going to go out of their way. They know that that's damn near guaranteed death. So for somebody to say that, that is a fairy tale. That is a joke. To sit there and watch somebody that you eat with, somebody you sleep next to, get beat half to death, and there's no way to contact this person's mother or their father, or if you were cool with them and you spoke to their parents and you got to meet them and you called them and you have to tell them, yeah, your son was set up. Your son was beat to death. I sat here and I couldn't do anything to help him. Picture your son or your daughter leaving out the house and a total stranger coming and choking them and jumping them with 5 people and beating them half to death in your yard, and you can't do anything. You're just stuck. You're froze, and you just have to sit there. And you have to watch your daughter or your son get beat to death right in front of you.
Wow.
Beat down, and you just have to sit there and eat it. And then the next day you go about your life like nothing happened. And then they come in, and then they come and pick 2 more people out of your house to say, listen, your son didn't let us do what we wanted to do. So now we're going to take 2 more of your children and beat them half to death now as a message. And you moved. You looked wrong. You flinched a little bit. So we're going to beat you up too. We're going to take you to a secluded area in your house, and we're going to beat you half to death and send you back as a message to everybody else. And that's the culture in a lot of these facilities. So for somebody to say that kind of enraged me. It brought back a lot of trauma from watching this for years. Mediums and maximum security prisons. At least in the maximum security prisons, the incarcerated individuals there will actually stop, like bystanders, concerned bystanders, and say, that's wrong. That's not accepted. That is wrong. Even I know that's wrong. I might be a person that stole. I might be a person that took something because I have an addiction. I might be a person that might be a rapist or a murderer or gay or Jewish or whatever. But I know that that's wrong. You can't beat that Christian guy up. You can't beat that Muslim guy up. You can't beat that transgender woman up just because you don't like the way he looks. You can't do that. And if you have a whole population stopping and saying that's wrong and filing complaints when these are the criminals that they're called, it's wrong. If you have a criminal saying that's wrong. And we don't even use that term. By law, we're named incarcerated individuals. So when you say inmate or criminal or convict, that's a stigma. That's a stereotype. That's racist. That's wrong. It's incarcerated individuals.
If you had the opportunity to talk to Keon, what would you tell Keon right now?
So I actually sat and thought about this when I was listening to his speech. And I would tell him to keep in communication with his family and to reach out to different organizations and to gather up everybody on the gallery and to file these grievances and to make copies of these grievances and to put together civil claims. Once you get the grievance going and the superintendent responds and the grievance office denies you and the superintendent denies you, go forward and put together that lawsuit. The only thing that these facilities listen to or respect is when you take their money out of their pockets. That's the only thing that they care about, their money, their trailers, their fancy cars, their big houses, or their pensions. That's the only thing that makes them respect you. That's the only thing that saved my life was learning how to file a civil claim. They don't care about who you are, how big you are, how much you work out, or how much money you got, or your family. They care about their family, their money. And they come in depressed and beat you down, right? They pick on you. They cut your light off. They're trying to kill you mentally. They can't kill you physically right now because a lot of fire is on them right now. So they want you to snap. They want you to be the person to throw something at them or to lash out at them so they can have a reason to say, I told you so. This guy's a fucking animal. Now we had every right to kill him. He attacked me first. My training told me to respond this way. Oops, it was a mistake. It was a mistake. So Keon has to stand firm and stay strong. It's going to take long nights of drinking toilet water and eating old moldy bread. But soon there'll be light in that darkness. For me, it was a lot of prayer. Pray a lot. Talk to your God. Talk to Allah, whoever, your higher power, and pray. Get a peace of mind. It's going to be long, hard nights. You're alone right now, but you're not alone on the outside world. There's plenty of people that care about you. So start putting together those grievances and documenting everything and writing to these judges, because accountability and transparency is coming soon.
So Sean, how do you take care of yourself? Like, you know, being formerly incarcerated, having gone through those experiences, how do you maintain your sanity and just live life?
So for me, it's not an end game thing. It's more of a constant everyday battle. I still have trauma that I face. It's still times where I can't trust people, or I can't be in certain rooms or areas that I have to kind of take a deep breath and say, I'm free now. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't have to deal with this anymore. And I stay busy. I kind of became a workaholic, and I enjoy helping people. And it's my life's goal now to kind of fix the criminal justice system, because I understand that it's the police report, it's the judges, it's the district attorneys, and it's the superintendents and the staff and COs. So I understand that I'm right now a voice of the voiceless, and this is my life's goal. I found a purpose. Before, I didn't have a purpose. And since I didn't have a purpose, I came home with a felony attached to me. I came home with that stigma. A lot of people didn't want to hire me, even though I had a lot of skills and qualifications. That stigma attached to me, and I didn't have a network. So it was tough for me. Then I had a parole officer that was tough on me. So I felt like I still had that weight on my back. I still had that darkness over my head. I still couldn't escape that prison stench. I couldn't get that off of me. But now I found a place where I can call my home and people actually care about me, and my family is able to support me. I slowly had to adjust and take things slow, and it's still baby steps. I don't speed. I take my time and I meditate and I pray. I started eating healthier and making better decisions. And I still have certain things going on that I have to deal with mentally, but I have a proper support network. And I really, really enjoyed Keon's mom saying that she's riding with him and she's going to stick with him to the end. That's exactly what we need. We need that support. That's what helped me. I found people that support me and make sure that I am where I'm supposed to be in life.
Wow. 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 Can you, because you actually started talking about, and we stopped at a point, that big shoe, and you were saying that there's a difference between little shoe and big shoe.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about what exactly big shoe is?
So I'll give you, I kind of got sidetracked from the story. So when I got to the big shoe, it was Upstate Box. I think it's closed now. I'm not sure. But I got to Upstate Box, and I had a bunkie, and my bunkie kind of was beaten by the COs already. He was black and blue. He was darker than me, but you still can see the black and blue marks under his eyes. You still can see the gashes on him. And he was kind of traumatized, and they told him that his next bunkie would kill him. So when I got through the doors, the first thing he did was try to attack me, you know? So I kind of had to hold him down and pin him against the wall. Like, what are you doing? What's going on? He said, you're going to kill me. You're going to kill me. He just kept screaming this. And I'm just holding him like, bro, I'm not going to kill you. What's going on? What are you talking about? We're having a struggle. And remember, I didn't eat for the past 30 days, and this guy hasn't eaten for who knows how long. So I'm malnourished, and this guy is even skinnier than me. So it's like I'm out of breath, he's out of breath, and we're damn near killing each other just with this struggle. And he's telling me, yeah, they beat me up. They're starving me, and they told me my next roommate is going to kill me. I said, bro, I'm a God-fearing man. I'm not here to do anything to harm you. I'm actually here to help you. And I let him go. And then he just sat back and he looked at me, and I looked at him. And I said, let's have a conversation. What's your name? He told me his name. I told him my name. And from there, we just started talking. But we stayed on both opposite ends of the cell. And we kind of just kept talking until we both just started. Hold on, let me plug in my laptop. We had this conversation, and then it turned out that he was getting released in about a month, just like Keon. He was getting released in a short amount of time. So what they do is they try to make you mess that up. They try to find ways to get you a new charge by either planting a weapon on you or making you go out of your way to hurt your bunkie. That's what they call it. Your roommate is your bunkie.
Yeah.
So he ended up going home. And then in that cell, I was next to 2 level 1S's. So for approximately 6 months straight, one guy banged on my wall, and it's metal walls, and the cells are really, really small. Picture the size of your kitchen table. You're walking around your kitchen table. That's how big the cell is. So if you have an average kitchen table, that's how big your cell is. And then you got to put in a toilet attached to a sink in that small space, and then try to squeeze a bed in that small space. Then imagine 2 grown men in that small space. 2 grown men and they have a shower in that small space too. So it's like a little wall where your shower is. You don't go anywhere for 24 hours. And then they say you're going to get fresh air. Your rec pen is behind you. It's a door that opens up. That's about that size too. It's just a cage attached to a smaller cell. So you're like a dog in a dog kennel. They don't let you out. And now I had one guy that was level 1S. He banged on this small metal box right where my head is at, where I sleep. He just banged all day. This guy didn't get any proper medical treatment. This guy, he didn't even speak proper English. He just spoke gibberish. You could tell he belonged in a psych ward or something. He just banged on my wall all day. Then the other guy next door, all he did was throw feces in front of the cell all day. That's all he did. For 6 months straight, all I smelled was feces. And on the other side was a guy banging on my wall. So it's just rivaling like this all day for 6 months straight, from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day. That's all he did was bang. And the other guy just threw feces all day. And then people are screaming. And sometimes people were getting raped. And sometimes people will be placed with people that they had problems with. So people will eventually get beat to death by each other because they knew which gang to put, which gang didn't like each other. So they would just pair them up and let them beat each other half to death for hours, walk past, and they wouldn't stop it. Then you have some officers that just wouldn't feed you. If your light wasn't on, if they would cut your power off, they wouldn't feed you. So the only thing you could do was drink out the toilet water. And our way of communicating was talking through the vents. Hey, are you alive over there? I realized they walked past your cell for the past 3 days. So we figured out ways to fish to each other. We basically would take the strings from the mattresses and we would attach it to a pole that we made out of computer paper. So you would take this computer paper, people that had GEDs or taking the GED test and stuff like that, or take over in ESL classes, they would create these poles and they would kind of attach their line, and then you would figure out ways how to fish with them. You would take the you see your toilet tissue, how it has that brown hard cardboard paper in the middle.
Yeah.
You take that and you fold it down. You save those. Or you take your milk carton from breakfast and you fold that down and you attach a string to it, and you have to kind of slide it kind of like that. And then it'll go under your door and you'll be able to grab their string. So we would have to take old plastic from certain meals and fold up the bread into like a ball and squeeze it real tight and attach it to that string just so this guy didn't die, you know? So if they think that that's a fairy tale, if that's a joke, then I guess you could start laughing. That's pretty funny. That's funny. So I've experienced it. There's days where I didn't eat, for probably 2 days. All I had was water. But eventually you kind of get immune to it. Some people would share ibuprofen. They're like, hey, wow, I got something that can help you. And they will send over a piece of ibuprofen. So the stomach pains will go away. Your stomach literally will be cutting you up so bad. There's times you just curl up in the ball and you just don't get up. And some people have roommates, So it'd be 2 people in the cell and they'd be like, please, I'll do anything to help you. So the one thing that kind of helped people was the fact that we got the phones. We got to speak to the outside world, and some people have visits and they'll go and tell their family like, hey, this guy needs some help. What can we do? And a lot of people, they didn't have the awareness, or they didn't have the intellectual capacity to break down what they were going through. They couldn't properly explain what they were going through. A lot of the incarcerated individuals have less than a GED. So they don't know how to communicate what they're feeling. They don't know how to speak their piece and share that experience with you. All they would say is, yeah, they're violating my rights. They beat me up. And that's it. And then the officer would just copy and paste what you posted early on today. Like, hey, I follow proper protocol. This is what my training said for me. Like a robot. They were like robots.
Yeah.
My protocol says this. So this is exactly what I did. I followed proper procedure. And then after a while, when you work a job, right, you get accustomed to that job. Anybody, let's say, for instance, you work as a typist, right? Somebody shows you the training, then you figure out ways how to do it your way. So they have the same thing. They figure out ways how to circumvent the system. They master what they do. Some people have been working 40 plus years, 25 plus years. You don't think they mastered how to get around every nook and cranny of the law?
Yeah.
You would be a fool to not believe that. So
Well, what changes would you make to our system now? If you have the power, the capability, the resources, what changes would you make now?
So one of the biggest changes that I would make was the tablets, right? The same way we have the grievance process through the filing of documents and going through this notarized process, I would put the grievance process directly on the tablets. Everything would be fully transparent. You'll be able to access it at any point in time, and anybody will be able to access that grievance, right? I would change up the internal hearing process, and I would change the department from OSI to an outside source that can investigate the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. So instead of them having their cousins and their uncles or people that are formerly staffed, because a lot of them are formerly staffed in DOCCS, so they're kind of friends, right? I would change it to people like you and I that kind of, or people that have the credentials as licensed social workers that don't have that bias towards DOCCS, or that bias towards us, in a way where they would be non-biased and they'll be able to make decisions without that immunity and without that discretion, right? That's another thing I would change. Another thing I would change is the fact that they have outdated trades. The trades that they provide for you when you're released from prison, you don't have an OSHA 40. You can't even step onto a construction site or into any of these trades that you want to partake in. You can't even open your own business. If you do something for 7 years, you don't become a master. You become the apprentice. And then another thing I would change is the education process. They want you, they basically force you to get your GED, or they beat you half to death if you don't go to school. And this is true. Ask any of the kids that go to school, or any of the adolescents, you want to call them, what happens when they don't go to school. And then the college process is on a merit-based rewards process. So you have to have a clean disciplinary history. If you have even one misbehavior report, you're finished. You won't be able to get in for a whole year. They basically bar you. And then that process is already full. So you'll have approximately 10 students for a whole year within this college process. And then they give you remedial credits. They don't even give you the credits that actually count. So I would change that process too, to the fact where you have to remember, these are our neighbors being released. Why would you want to release somebody that has been viewing abuse or been a victim of abuse and doesn't have the proper treatment or doesn't have the proper care to address these abuses, right? If I witness somebody being stabbed or being jumped or being brutalized, or if I was in the box for this amount of time and I don't have the mental capacity to actually come home and reintegrate in society, why don't you provide the proper care? Why would you give lesser than when you know a person is going to be released soon? Why would you circumvent the law? So I would change that whole process.
Is there anything else you want to tell the audience, tell whoever's listening?
Yeah, I would definitely want to say thank you to you for inviting me on your podcast, and I want to thank Keon Walker for sharing his story, and I want to thank Keon's mom for definitely being strong. When I first heard her speaking, it reminded me of Jesus when he was crucified, and before he was crucified, and he was carrying the cross, and his mom had to witness everything that he was going through. You know, he went through this trial, and he went through almost 3 different trials where he was wrongfully convicted without any evidence, and he was beaten, he was brutalized, and he was made a mockery, and they lied on him, you know? So now you got to hear it not from Jesus' side, you got to hear it from his mom's side. So now Keon's mom is telling her son's story the same way as what happened to Jesus, basically, right? And this is not a religious thing at all, right? And hearing it from somebody's mom, I picture my mom, and it breaks my heart because I never got that from my mom. I never got to ask her, hey, how did you feel? How can I help you heal? You don't know what the other person is going through on the outside. So hearing the outsider story, it crushed me a little bit. And I'm going to have to sit up and kind of go home and hug my mom and say, thank you for being here and supporting me and praying for me for all these years, and having to hear all the pain and suffering that I was going through. I didn't even stop to think of what you were going through. So I definitely appreciate her for doing that. And I want to really encourage everybody to be mindful of the fact that we are electing these officials into office. So we do have a power. Every time election time comes around, look up your state legislators, you know, and see who they are, because these are the people that represent you. And if you have people that don't have the best interest for you and your family, you should change your vote. So go out and vote and become more aware of what's going on, and learn how to file lawsuits, because that's the biggest thing. That's civil rights, class action lawsuits. That's going to change what's going on when you come for their pockets. The same person that put that rag in Robert Brooks' mouth, he used to threaten me every day when I was in Marcy for 2 years. And I told him, I actually showed him a document where I went up against Letitia James and I won. And I said, look, I will sue the pants. I will sue the pockets off your pants if you even lay one finger on me. I learned my lesson. I'm not going to go out of my way and make you attack me and be the fool because I don't know my rights. No, I know my rights now. I know how to conduct and carry myself. So once you bring that awareness and you get that wisdom, share it too. Share it with others so they'll be able to arm themselves with intelligence. The pen is mightier than a sword. I want Keon to know that too. The pen is mightier than a sword. Those documents are going to add up. So all of you keep those documents and write down and take notes of everything that you hear and bring it to those legislators. I thank all of y'all for having me here today, and I really appreciate it. And God bless everyone. And I hope everyone doesn't have to experience, you know, the tragedies that goes on and this disturbing stuff. It's really disturbing, and I appreciate it.
You know, and Sean, I want to thank you immensely for coming on and just, you know, being very open about your experience and, you know, sharing with the world what you've been through, both physically, psychologically, spiritually. And, you know, it's rare that I don't have too much to say, but I really don't have too much to say. It's just, you know, hearing your story and hearing what people are going through. And, you know, these stories aren't being highlighted in the mainstream media. Like the last couple of months, the only thing we heard about was, you know, correction officers striking for quote unquote better working conditions. And you rarely heard about, you know, those incarcerated and the beat downs and the psychological torture. And it's really not being discussed. So I want to thank you for sharing and talking to us. And I definitely want to have you back on to talk more, if that's okay with you.
Okay. I look forward to it. Like I told you before, this is my life's goal, to bring this accountability and full transparency to all these situations that's going on, you know, and don't be fooled by their banter and all of their scripts that they come forward with. They're going to have the best scripts in the world. You got to remember, they're trained to lie in these instances. It's a culture. So the workers comp for them is a joke. They abuse it. They get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to sit there. Majority of them sleep at the desks. They don't do anything. They tell other people, hey, listen, we'll take away everything that you have if you don't regulate it yourself. They kill two birds with one stone. They make people go at it with each other, and they capitalize on that and say, hey, this is a place where everything that's going on is so violent and so cruel. We need more funding. We need better wages. We need more pay. And it's a joke. It's sometimes where I sat in the cell and I said, I should have been a CO. They get paid to lie. They get paid to steal. They get paid to hurt people. They get paid to kill people. They get paid to sleep for 8 hours and say, why are you waking me up to go to the package room? Why are you waking me up to go to the visit to see your family? You don't see them fucking sleeping? And that just blew my mind. For the past 8 hours, you slept. And this is everywhere. And then the first thing that happens when Albany comes in is Albany is coming. Make sure this place is spick and span. If anything is out of place, when they leave, we're going to kill you. So don't be fooled by the robotic chatter that they create, the banter, the scripts.
Yeah. We actually have some comments I wanted to share with you before you run out of here.
Okay.
We have from Loca. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Sean, for sharing your story. We have Loca again. Thank you, Sean, for sharing your story, and many good wishes to you. We have Keon Walker's mother, Keisha, saying, Sean, I need you to share some things with me. I have some questions. So I can put you both together if you guys don't have each other's contact information. Okay. We have a question from Sophia. Which organization does Sean work with? I don't know if you want to put that out there or.
I work with the Fortune Society. I'll put that out there. I work with the Fortune Society. We're criminal justice organization. I'm basically speaking on my own behalf and not on behalf of my organization, but my job is a peer specialist. So people that are formerly incarcerated, they come to my organization and I help them find food, clothing, housing. I get them medical benefits. I get them healthcare. I get them everything. I'm basically a peer specialist. So I host Zoom anger management groups. I also do cognitive behavioral therapy. I also do intake coordination, and I'm also a mentor to the Bloomberg Fellowship. So people that have changed their life around and they went through a series of trials, and then they get basically certified to work in a corporate organization called Bloomberg. Basically, this is the former mayor of New York City. So I get them internships there.
Thank you. All right, Sean, it has really been a pleasure.
And
I look forward to having you back, and maybe we can talk more about Marcy next time. Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, Sean. Take care. I'll see you. Bye-bye.
And then if they want to add me, they can add me on LinkedIn, and you could give it to them. You can provide that to them if you want. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that as well. All right. Have a blessed night.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. Take care. Okay, there you have it. That was Sean. Definitely another thank you to Sean for being on. A thank you for Keisha, Keon Walker's mother, for being on and sharing her story. Wow, I really don't have too much to say about that. Speaking with Keon Walker's mother, hearing her story. It truly breaks your heart to know that people are being treated in such a non-humane manner. And then hearing from Sean, hearing these stories really makes you think. It really makes you want to do something. So hopefully we can make change out there and definitely reform the system. So before I go, I want to give a special thank you to Arplo, who became a member. And I want to give a special thanks to the stream sponsor, Introvert Rockstar. I want to thank you tremendously. And just before I go, I want to say thank you again. Please like the video, share the video, comment, let me know your thoughts. Even I appreciate comments from correction officers. I do read them all. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It will be a great help. Again, thank you. Take care. God bless. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.